That being said, I don't know about you, but I am ready, guys, to get to the fight card. Ezra Duke, are you ready? And Janice London Welshman, Roxanne Aaron, Nicole Yaw, are you guys ready? Folks, let's get right to the fight card. And I want to share with you a bit of breaking news. As we come on this evening, we learned that a couple out of Linden unfortunately lost their life at a place called Caledonia on the east bank of Demerara. And this is Nicholas Valsin and Alicia Sanderson Valsin. And we were made to understand that they were caught up in a head-on collision with a canter truck there at Caledonia on the east bank of Demerara. And unfortunately, they would have lost their lives. Folks, we got to use the road with optimum care. Look out for our fellow motorists. Look out for pedestrians. Our thoughts and prayers go out to their family, friends, and the community that love them there in Linden. Again, this is Nicholas Valsin and Olisa Sanderson Valsin, who would have lost their lives, unfortunately, there at an area called Caledonia on the east bank of Demerara. And again, we cannot emphasize, we got to exercise so much caution on the roads. Thoughts and prayers go out to their loved one. That being said, folks, lots of people name calling. Sonia Parag, name calling. Who else name calling this evening? Lots of people name calling. The Finance Minister, Ashley Singh, name calling. The installed Finance Minister, his name calling. Who else name calling this evening? The installed Barajagyo, his name calling as well. His name is calling. A lot of people name calling tonight. Y'all better make sure y'all name are calling. You better make sure your name is not calling. It's one thing to the next in this country. One purgatory to the next. Confusion powder. Confusion powder, folks. A lot of people name calling. Ensure in all that you do that your name in calling. Too many people name calling. Too many people name calling. It's Drea. Well, I calling you name. Laverne, Cameron, Candy, Nelene, Angel Jeet, and Marky, Yvonne McPherson. Y'all name calling? Of course, I calling y'all name. Share the live stream, folks. A lot of folks name calling. Shanetta David Edwards. Your name calling. Picture of the day, folks. Picture of the day. The Muhammad's name calling. Now, the Muhammad's of Muhammad's enterprise fame have been doing a lot of charity work and a lot of good. And this was one instance just today. They were giving out some funding to a well-deserved individual. Now, if you look at this photo, this is not per se what made this the photo of the day, but is what was above in the background of this photo that caused it to be our photo of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, it is what is in the background. Sometimes you have to look at the details. And we think Chisung Henry, Harriet Lewis, and Orlinda Grant, we think Simone Apple, that the Mohammeds got it right. Look what was in the background above this image. The state executives, ladies and gentlemen. So look at the order. The Mohammeds got it right. You got Irfan. You got Jack Dio. Then you got the Prime Minister. And because of the nature of their business, they got the natural resource installed minister there. So the Mohammeds got it right. Don't let us fool ourselves in this country. They got it right to an extent because really and truly they should have got BJ. Now so, Alia Waldron, Leslie Knapp, they should have got BJ first, then Irfan, then Mark Phillips. Right? But this is as right as they could get it. So this is what made this the picture of the day Olive Farrell chosen. Now so, picture of the day. That being said, folks, let us turn our attention or in the vernacular, let me turn we attention to the Jagabats. Let us turn our attention to the Jagabats. That same lineup. Irfan, Jagdeo, Phillips, those are the Jagabats, the whole pack of them. The whole team of them, Jagabats. Well, folks, this can be easily be known as the bad news PPP. The bad news. And we didn't even get today's news when we started to collate information for this program. But it can be called the bad news PPP. And here is why, ladies and gentlemen. One letter writer in Starbuck News, his name is Shamshun Mohammed. He said nothing good and coming out of this government. That was Shamshun Mohammed's contribution in a letter to the editor quite recently. He wanted to know if the government is doing no good. Because he knows to himself, this is the bad news. PPP. Listen to what Shamshun Mohammed said in this letter. Very briefly, it seems all gloom and doom, and it is like a runaway train with no stopping it. Headlines speak of duplicity at COP26, the failure to audit the US $9 billion from ExxonMobil expenses, the lack of transparency in the proposed oil-to-gas shore project, DJs and football organizers in the construction center, failure to appoint the Public Utilities Commission, the Public Procurement Commission rather, the proposed controversial amendments to elections laws and penalties, and the list goes on. So Shamshun Mohammed says, what, this government didn't do nothing good? Well, we would have liked to add something good out of today, but I kid you not, there's nothing to add. No good. So these are the bad news. The bad news PPP. That's what it be. Confusion powder. And to prove the list of their broken promises goes on. You remember they said they're coming back to open up the sugar industry? All the closed sugar estates, sugar factory. Another letter writer recognizing their duplicity continued with the bad news. Sorry, Shamshun Mohammed. Here what this letter writer said. One Samuel Gittins, 15 months into office, the PPP yet to open any of the closed sugar estates. Guyanese around the world, viewers, the lies catching up with them. That is the crux of the matter. Their lies are catching up with them. And here is what this letter writer said. Again, very briefly, some 15 months into the administration, and none of the 4 sugar estates closed by APNU has been reopened as promised by the PPP's manifesto and the vice president. None is under cultivation, and only a few hundred of the right-sized 7,500 workers have been rehired. It is abundantly clear that the only movement Gaisuko has made since this government has taken into office is moving backwards. Those are the words of Samuel Gittins, another letter writer. So there's no news on the Gaisuko front. And as Shamshun Mohammed pointed out, pointing to all of these issues, there is no good news when he talks about the duplicity, Shamshun Mohammed that is, the duplicity of COP26, the failure of the PPP to audit the US $9 billion of ExxonMobil expenses, the lack of transparency in the proposed oil-to-gas shore project, DJs and footballers, organizers now in the construction industry, the failure to appoint the Public Procurement Commission. He goes on about the controversial amendments to the election laws and penalties. No good news. And then Samuel Gittin follows up that 15 months on, none of the promised reopening of the closed sugar estates has been done. Failed promises. And folks, I tell you, we were collating, we were putting together this information long before That announcement came out this afternoon. Long before that, look at another front. This is the president of the Georgetown Chambers of Commerce, which is another mouthpiece of the installed PPP administration. And they are saying, brace ourselves, shortages coming for Christmas. Short money, short increase, food shortages, service shortages. He said, brace yourself. Expect shortages, not maybe, not might, expect it. Shortages coming for Christmas. On every front, folks. Look at another Jagabat. The Region 2 REO, Devanan Ramdat, or we should say rather the former Region 2 REO. This Jagabat has been implicated in some serious infractions, serious mismanagement, corruption. He has been implicated. It is alleged he do a lot of damage and a lot of mischief in Region 2. Their own internal investigation viewers found a lot of malpractice where it concerns Devon and Ramdat in Region 2. You know what they have done? In the truest of PPP fashion, we've been made to understand, reliably informed by credible sources, that Ramdat is now posted at the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. That is the repercussion for his actions. And now one Susanna Sewak has taken over there in Region 2. These are the scamps, the undesirables that we have to deal with. These are the set, the Jagabats, wasting taxpayers' money, misusing taxpayers' money. And what do they get? You get a reassignment. So we're watching David and Ramdat's conduct there at the Ministry of Local Government. And we're watching Susanna because credible source is telling us that Susanna is now picking up from where Ramdat left off. Credible sources. And folks, just like Shamshun Muhammad, that letter writer, said about the bad news with the PPP, it continues. It continues. You remember Shamshun pointed out this non-auditing of the $9 billion expenses of ExxonMobil? Well, chartered accountant and lawyer Christopher Ram, he ain't having it with these Jagabats either. Months ago, Christopher Ram resigned from NASIL. He was a board member at NASIL, and apparently when Christopher Ram see the skullduggery, allegedly, he couldn't take it, and he resigned. Now, this is Christopher Ram saying that these Jagabats here, from Ali to Jagdeo to Mark Phillips, Sonia Parag, the other one at the Ministry of Natural Resources, Bharat, Vikram Bharat, a whole set of installed ministers, they have no interest in good governance. And at the time Christopher Ram was making this statement, he was directing his attention to the oil and gas sector. Here is what Kaicho News said on that front, ladies and gentlemen. He says the PPPC administration is not interested in any form of good governance with regards to the management and administration of the country's still nascent oil and gas sector. In fact, the ruling party is comfortable with the status quo, where there are basically three persons in charge of the sector, namely the head of state, Catfish, the natural resource minister, this other Jagabat Bharat, Vikram Bharat, and then you got the vice president who higher than the prime minister, Jagdeo. It's them three in charge of the whole oil and gas sector. A whole host of promises, transparency and accountability. How they working out for us? So Ram said, these Jagabats got no interest. You better share the live stream. Glennis and Karen and Chisung, Leon, These jagabats got no interest in good governance. And by now, viewers around the world, y'all know they have no interest. Nobody's trying to brainwash you or whitewash you or anywash you. You're seeing this in what you read on a daily basis coming out of this country. They have no interest, zero, zilch interest in good governance. And that is why things tight. Things tight. Volmay Wilson, you know things tight. Angela McDonald, Odessa Primus, you know things tight. Odessa, you know? Wink, wink. Things tight. German Osborne, Whiny, Sherwin James, things tight. Diane Fordyce, things tight. We know that. You know that. Shirley Withers, Deborah Glasgow, you know things tight in this place. Guys, share the live stream. The information got to go out there what these jagabats are doing. Look how things tight. We have received call after call after call on this issue. People say things being stolen out of the barrel on the wharfs. People shipping in the things for Christmas. You know, it's get your little, as we used to say back in this, your little ice apple, your little walnuts. Of course, you got to get your little Danish cookies and so on. They say when they bust the barrel, things missing. Folks, you know why? Things tight. Things tight. So I'm calling on the shipping percentage gets paid. And let us turn our attention to that. Because we see money pay. Is back pay or is back pain? That is the question we can ask ourselves. Is back pain? That's the question we can ask ourselves. Or is it back pain? And I want to bring you guys from where this issue emerged, our frustrations with this installed administration, this catfish gang, these hypocrites, these confusion powderists. Look at what transpired from since the first budget was read in 2020, September 2020. These jagabats had their first budget reading and no increase for public servants was in the budget, even though the Ministry of the Public Service got a 2 billion budget. Photoshop Parag, Photoshop Sonia. Here is what Sonia said at the time, folks. Here is what this jagabat said at the time. Minister Sonia Parag said an increase in salary in the public servants, or for public servants rather, is not included in the budget since the process of collective bargaining must be first conducted before increases are announced. So you got to meet with the union and so hash out and dash out. And then you come to a conclusion on what the increase will be. So one is suggesting, or one is hoping that they would have met with the union. I would be very surprised if the union agreed to 7%. But that is what Sonia said in September of 2020, after their first budget had nothing for public servants. Well, she can come and say this was Photoshop. They can say this is Photoshop. In February of this year, second budget, nothing for public servants. Nothing for public servants. But this installed vice president kept insisting in line item 4161, there was a $10 billion and the increase in public servant was there. In August of this year, they said it coming soon. That is what they told us. They said it is coming soon. So that's the history of the issue. Then today, blam, a whopping, strong, staggering 7%. trapping, whopping 7% in your tail. 7%. But these are the jagabats, the promise breakers, who had promised us what? They had promised us 50%. That is what they had promised us. They had promised us 50%. But you wrong, and I wrong, and all we wrong. Because the mouth switch. You know them fork tongue, double mouth people? All of a sudden the mouth switch. And now they're saying they never promised 50%. How can you trust a government like this? Even though they're installed, listen to what this installed Minister of the Public Service, Sonia Parak, said. Listen to what she said.
This government and the PPPC, when campaigning, never promised 50% increase in salaries. What there was a photoshopped photo taken from I don't know where and posted up as if the government was saying, I'm giving you 50% increase.
So Sonia would have us believe we didn't see with we own eye on all them posts. Lantern posts, as we say here, not lantern, lantern posts. Them going up there, the PPP, and nailing up 50%. Had it all on social media. Now, all of us blind. You know, this is Men in Black when they ask you to look into the light, clicks, and erase your memory. That's what Sonia is asking us there. She said, we never promised 50%. And all they saw that 50% on social media. They never came and said, we're not promising 50%. They just let it go. According to her, how can you trust people like this? They never promised 50%. But she was setting the stage for Ashley. Here is that other jagabat. He should have stayed in Dubai. He's across. He should have stayed in Dubai.
I now wish to make the following announcement on behalf of His Excellency the President and his cabinet. Your government has set aside an amount of $400 million for a special 2021 payout to be made to frontline workers in the health sector who have continued to face extenuating circumstances in the daily discharge of their duties as our country and the world continue to battle the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. The details of this payout will be announced shortly, and the payout will be made to eligible employees before the end of 2020, or before the end of December 2021. I am pleased to announce now that your government will be paying an across-the-board increase of 7% to public servants, teachers, members of the disciplined services, constitutional office holders, as well as government pensioners. This
First thing, Ashley looks sick. I don't know if it's Ashley Frank they're talking about with them government workers who's fake COVID infection, but Ashley looks sick. Ashley sweating. You know Ashley don't believe one word he telling us there. He don't believe one word. And Sonia Paragan tell me, oh, that was Photoshop too. So the 50% was Photoshop. I want to know from former Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan, how the 7%, how they supposed to do when the price of goods gone up by 40%, according to their mid-year report. And this might have increased since then. How is that 7% going to match up? That's one of the questions I want to ask him about. I want to ask him as well, ladies and gentlemen, that given inflation from the mid-year report as well, how does that 7% match up? Inflation close to 7% itself. The inflation rate. So I want to know from Minister Jordan, how will that match up? And then I will ask him as well, based on what they have given to Guy Suko, for instance, how do public servants 7% match up? They gave Guy Suko workers money in March of 2021. In April of 2021, they strike again, the sugar workers. In September, they give them a 200 million. And then by October, we heard them saying that they're giving them another 250,000 individually. How does that stack up? That's one of the questions I want to ask the former Minister of Finance. And then with what public servants were given, what was given to the sugar industry, how that stack up too? The sugar industry were given a lot of money. It was given a lot of money in the recent past. In that September budget of 2020, or even before September, in August of 2020, they gave the sugar industry 600 million. In the September budget, they gave them 5 billion. They came back in December and gave them a further 4 billion. 4 billion in a supplementary budget. And by the February, the second budget, they gave them another 2 billion. They came back in June of this year and gave them 1.5 billion. And we said earlier on in the program, nothing, nada. None of the promised reopening of the closed sugar estates. When APNU AFC right-sized the sugar industry, the PP promised they were going to open those sugar estates. And the public, that letter writer, Samuel Gittins, pointed out 15 months on, not one has been opened. Ladies and gentlemen, that being said, I want to welcome some of my guests. We're going to be joined by former Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan. We're also going to have Member of Parliament, Juretha Fernandes, going to be joining us a little later on, and also the Member of Parliament, Tabitha Sarabo-Halley is going to be joining us a little later on. But right off the block, folks, I want to welcome former Minister of Finance, the one and only Winston Jordan. And I think he's ready for us. Yes, he is. And let me add Juretha to the conversation one time as well. A very good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us. You know I would have included you on this conversation this evening. You know it's coming your way. I mean, sir, the country is aghast as what is happening here. Make sense of this 7% for us. Let us start there.
Well, good night to you and good night to your viewers. I suppose in the true sense of Christianity...
Minister Jordan, I would love if you can just center a little bit more for us. I hope I don't displace you too much. So we have you a little more centered. Take your time and we're going to hold for you. Folks, bear with us. I want to make sure we're seeing him properly. Just turn your device a little bit, maybe to your right. I'm guessing. We can use that. And tilt it a little bit up. Tilt it a little bit up. Good. Great. Yes, sir. Go right ahead. We're going to take that.
Yes, sir. I was saying in the context and spirit of Christmas, I suppose the first thing we need to do is to give thanks that we actually got something after lobbying for the last 15 months, so to speak. I think the second thing is that I don't want to sound like a soothsayer, but I had predicted that based on what they had put there, the increase would have been between 5 and 7% after they make certain deductions for frontline workers and bonus and paying salaries to new recruits and all these kinds of things. So again, as I said, in that sense, you have to be thankful that it was the upper end of that range that I predicted. But having said that, though, let's do some granularity. If I were to coin a word, breaking this down, you got no increase in 2020, and now you're given a 7 in 2021. Not for 2021, because we have to look at this 7 from the last time salaries were increased, which was December 2019. So this will work out to be about just over 3% in a compound sense for 2020 and 2021, or about 3.5% using the 2019 base for the years 2020 and for the year 2021. Now, when you look at inflation for both years, that 3% already lost its value. So that is one sense of looking at it. The other sense is that I've seen a lot of trending on social media that says, bring back Uncle Winston. But
Are you going to come back?
I'm thankful for all the messages and so forth. But I think what they were saying essentially is that look, they got their increases tax-free, because we recognize as a coalition government that we were holding the increases for these people for over a year, given the opportunity to spend it as a government. And we said the least we can do for them is to give them that increase, A, retroactive, and B, payable tax-free. So if we were to announce a 7% increase, we will follow by, and it will be paid tax-free. And I think we got a lot of kudos for that, because ultimately people got the full increase that they got. Today, this announcement seems to suggest that this money is going to be paid after 2 years, literally, it's going to be taxed. Now let's look at the average person who works about $70,000, because a significant number of public servants work for $70,000 or thereabout. The bulk of workers work for $100,000 and less. So let's look at 70,000. 7% at 70,000 gives you roughly about 4,900. So that is the increase per month. 4,900 at the bottom. And we're talking about workers like the sweeper cleaners, office assistants, nurse assistants, and so forth. So their increase really is $4,900 in a gross sense. But since this money will be taxed at the lower end at 28%, because the threshold is $65,000 per month. Mm-hmm. So already they're paying income tax on the $70,000 that they're receiving. So this increase will be taxed at the full 28%. Now, quick calculation suggests that is roughly about $15,200. So the net take-home pay is about $38,800 after 2 years. If you were to split that in two, it's roughly $19,400 cumulatively. If you divide that by about 12, you will get about $1,600 per month. Well, don't even go for it by dividing it per day, right? $1,600 per day. At 30 days, that will give you about $500 and something per day. Now, I believe that could buy you a couple pounds of sugar or a couple of flour. It could certainly buy you a loaf of bread.
Yep.
It could certainly buy you a loaf of bread and such other. So when you put it in that granular manner, your 7% literally disappears. And I'm not even talking about inflation. I'm just using the what they have put out here. If you adjust it for inflation, you're worse off, because the real effect of the 7% is negative. Because already in this year alone, at the half year, the inflation was 5-point-something%. But at the level of $70,000, most people are spending their money on food. And we know at the half year, food prices are up 14-point-something%. So you've got a 3%, an average of 3% increase, which worked out, as we just now see, to about $500 or so forth. You know also that once you announce wage increases, prices will go up. It's like a trigger. So even though they're already high, they're expected to go even higher. The only saving grace that you have is that, based on what you just now said on the program, that the GCCI president said that there will be shortages and so forth. That's a blessing in disguise for those who will be getting this little payout, because they don't have to go spending their money and frittering it away on all these chasing Christmas that don't have the Christ in it. Ice apples, as you say, and grapes, and bourbon chocolates and whatever else. They can studiously put away the 38,000 until January, when things are really going to be tight, and when a lot of belt tightening. Even Ali said, brace yourself for the cost of living increases, and he wasn't even speaking about this increase that was being given here that will trigger for the increase in the cost of living.
Juretha?
I think good night, Sharon. Good night to all of you. I think Mr. Jordan just broke it down exactly how I would break it down, because that's the reality of it. It's over a 2-year period. This is what they bring to the Guyanese people. I think it's a slap in the faces of all Guyanese. I think it is just blatant disrespect for public servants all across this country, for the people to actually believe that they can come and say that 7% across the board is what they're going to be given. Public servants were there and they were waiting We know very well about the increase in cost of living, the 14% that Mr. Jordan is talking about. That at this moment, we were in November. Today is the 18th of November. That 14% would have increased significantly based on the trend that we have going on since the beginning of the year. So we're probably at 16% now, if I dare say. And that's the increase in the cost of food. The increase was basically nothing. There was no increase. What happened is that we were being shortchanged since the PPP came into office because they didn't give an increase last year. And now, this year, when they were supposed to come and recover what they did not do last year, they went and they bring out the 7%. Basically, with the inflation increase in prices across the board, there was no increase at all. There was no recovery of what they have put this country in. So what went on all the time is a person was buying less and less because prices are going up, their salaries are not going up. And now to make matters worse, all the PPP did is come and say 7%. So if you were buying 20 items and you had to cut it down to 10 items, oh, now you can raise it back up to 11 items. That is what they did. They put the public servants in a hole and can't afford basic food items since they entered office. And now they came to the people of this country. Ashley Singh was very brazen, I think, to come to the people of this country. I think Jagya would have never actually come and said that because he was the one, Mr. Duncan, in 2016. Mr. Jordan is right here. In 2016, Mr. Jagya is the one that started the 50% talk in when they had the budget debate in 2016. He was the one that demanded that the coalition give public servants a 50% salary increase. He was the one that said that. Mind you, then we didn't have all the oil resources that they have at their disposal right now.
Yeah.
They were the ones who took that from the 2016 debate. They took that and they took it into their campaign promises. How dare Sonia Parag to come today and say that they never promised that? You know, the
Photoshop.
blatant
Photoshop.
disrespect altogether. It is completely, I'm very upset because persons are calling me, persons are messaging me. I can't even read some of the messages out loud for the audience because it's so colorful. The messages that's coming from the public service, it's so colorful because one person said, how dare the ministers come back into work tomorrow to face us? How do they
Yeah.
face us after
Yeah.
doing this to us? We've been doing everything. They called us out in a pandemic. We came out and we worked tirelessly. Every request made the public servants, they bent to and they did the work. And then you come now and say what? You know what, Sharon? I would honestly tell the people that little pittance that they have sprinkled on the public servants in this country when they're enjoying the lavish lifestyle and when the multi-million dollar and billion-dollar contracts are being signed off here and
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
The public servants need not go and
Yeah.
spend money at the private sector that is already enjoying the benefits of so many things in this government. I mean, it is a very persons should be angry. I'm very angry about it, and everyone should be angry about it.
And you know who's angry? Just before you come in, Mr. Jordan, I want to add Tabitha Sarabo-Halley to the discussion because she is angry as well. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, yes, Sharon. Just want to add for three more points in addition to what
Go right ahead, sir.
First of all, they're gone back to this old worn out across the board story.
Yeah.
So consider the person getting the $70,000.
Yeah.
$4,900 to the salary, making the new minimum wage of about $74,900. But the same 70% is to be given with the person who's getting $1 million in salary. That same 70%, that's $70,000 increase per month for that person, equivalent to the month's minimum wage of the person at the bottom.
Yeah.
So that's the in absolute terms. In relative terms, it widens the gap. It widens the gap between the person at the bottom and the person at the top. Contrary to what we do in the 5 years that we were there, which is to close that gap by giving differentiated salary increases, favoring those at the bottom as opposed to those at the top. Now you're going back to the old, worn out, tired, lazy, across the board increase that affects the person at the top nicely, but at the one at the bottom, virtually who spends all the money already on food, so nicely. Second thing is, people not seem to figure this out, but they have hidden the increases to the ministers are the constitutional. Constitutional post holders are to get the same 7% increase. People are forgetting that the president is a constitutional post holder. The ministers are deemed to be constitutional post holders. So they are going
So
to get
70% of that big amount they're already making as a
Yeah.
salary.
That is correct. Now we get hounded for salary increases
The
in
whole
2015 at the level of the ministers. But that only salary increase that was given to the coalition government in 5 years. No other salary increase was given after 2015.
Yeah.
They just come in and awarded themselves a 7% increase, not on the pre-2015 minister's salary, which Jagdeo said that they were going to revert toward it to get in government.
We
But they
still
are getting
waiting.
7% on the salary that we got in 2015. So they have awarded themselves a 7% increase right away
Yeah.
at the expense of the workers. But they could collect that 7% and hand it back to the workers. Third thing is, since you're only saying that you only could pay 7% based on your ability to pay, that ability to pay has been ruined over the last 15 months by the destruction of the tax base, by them destroying the tax base to give more and more concession to the private sector. So now they're in a quandary. That is why they got to even tax the little back pay, because the deficit is so large. The deficit is so large, they can't afford any more giveaways. And the poor public servant who has not benefited in the 2 years, particularly over the last 15 months, now has to pay the cost of that giveaway that they gave to the private sector. But I could tell them right now, why don't you take 25 million US dollars from the Natural Resource Fund and pay a one-off bonus to the public servants in lieu of a bigger increase? At least it would be a one-off, and public servants could at least benefit from at least $250,000, what they're expecting to give to the sugar workers. That will be rubbing a little balm in the wound that they're nursing right now with the 7% increase. And that's the point about them saying that during next year they are going to put money in the budget to correct anomalies. Now this is laughable, particularly the example that was used. Imagine the minister is saying that if both you and I graduated from wherever in environmental science, and you went with your environmental science degree to agency A, and I go to agency B with my environmental science degree, and at agency B I'm getting 180,000, but you, Cheryl, at agency A is getting 120,000. That is a problem. That's an anomaly in salaries. Wherever is this ever heard? I thought you base salaries on a job evaluation and the what
the
the
job
job.
description altogether.
An economist at agency A does not necessarily do the same work as an economist at agency B, and so forth. So to tell me that because the two of us got in together with the economics degree or environmental science degree, but we're getting differential salaries, that's the reason for which we're going to equate the salary. No.
And
But it's interesting, Mr. Jordan.
Job based on
You know what is I would be Sherrod if I button at this point in time. I'm interested to know how he would treat with teachers with that statement that was made, because we have a whole lot of teachers that would have graduated from university with a degree, and they went back into the teaching profession. They are subjected to the salary scale of the teaching profession. How does he treat with those? So that statement, I found it very loose, and I would love to hear the breakdown.
I like that.
The plan, because Tabitha is here, Tabitha who could tell you that when we took office, the mess that we inherited from the PPP when it comes to salary scale altogether, how it was, and it was crazy. We put so much effort into getting away from the madness that we found, and now there is Ashley saying that today coming again with a whole load of more madness.
Yeah, and that's what I want to pick Mr. Jordan's brain on before I bring in Tabitha, because he talked also in this presentation here, this statement, what he called an address of some of the taxes that they rolled back. Let's say VAT on water, some of the zero-rated food items. He they rolled back the water tariff by 5%. They talked about some of the transportation costs and the taxes on, let's say, a flight from Georgetown to Lethem. They rolled back some of that. But Mr. Jordan, if my mind serves me right, that began under the APNU AFC administration and under you as finance minister.
Yes, Sarah. In fact, this morning on CAMS TV, I had to remind people that they are credit for work that we did. We rolled back the taxes. We put them on in the first place, but we rolled them back. April the 1st, 2020, we removed the VAT on water and electricity. And on April the 8th, we removed the VAT on domestic travel. What they are taking credit for is for making these temporary measures permanent in October or November of 2020. But the reality is, once these taxes would have been rolled back in April, any pass-through of the relief would have been done in April, not in October, because you didn't do anything in October. There wasn't no adjustment of the taxes in October. The adjustment of the VAT taxes took place in April. And any adjustment to the prices and the domestic fares would have been done in April, not when they were made permanent. Permanent was just making what was temporary permanent, but it didn't mean any shift in what I was getting prior to making it permanent. It's the exact same thing now that was made permanent. So they keep mouthing this over and over and over, but they remove VAT on electricity and remove VAT on water and remove VAT on domestic travel. These were among the first measures of the coalition that were done in April 2020, and it was the best that we could do as a government in waiting, because effectively we were waiting on the declaration, and we didn't have the wherewithal to make permanent all these budget measures and so on. They merely did that.
Very well. So Tabitha, we got this announcement this afternoon of this strapping 7% increase in wages and salaries. As former Minister of the Public Service, the current your successor says that they never promised a 50%. That was Photoshop. How did you receive this announcement, quote unquote?
Good evening to your viewers. Good evening, Sharon. It's good to be on. Not a very good evening for a lot of our public servants tonight. I, like many others, were on twofold. I was quite appalled, but at the same time, you really couldn't expect much better from the PPP. I wrote a sort of facetious statement on my Facebook that this is what you get when you have an accountant pretending to be an economist. There seems to be not a realization of where exactly we are in the country, what exactly public servants actually need, or they really just do not care. We can choose which one. They really probably just do not care about the state of public servants right now, what has transpired in the economy over the last 18 months, and how, on the one hand, public servants are seeing what the government is doing for other workers on the one hand, also the money that the hearing that is coming in from the oil, and then at the end of the day, they get a 7% that is going to be taxed, which amounts to almost nothing in the end for most of the public servants. So it's quite appalling, and that people that actually saying Dr. Singh would stand up there in front of the camera and try to justify it by talking about the 25,000 one-off grant and the 25,000 this, which a lot of persons didn't actually, and those who actually received it, it would have ended at almost the same day that they received it, because of the state of the economy and the state of prices of all items that we actually have to get on a monthly, sometimes a weekly basis. And so I think the entire Facebook world where Guyanese are concerned are very appalled, and the statement by the Minister of the Public Service. And I am wondering if she lives in the same country the rest of us live in, or if she was around.
It looks different from a year ago.
Listening to her own. If she was not listening to the same to her president and her vice president, because she seems to be in a different world. How could you now come to the public where everybody and their children know that the PPP was saying they were going to get 50% increase for public servants, and say that it was Photoshop. I don't think she's living in the same country the rest of us. But I think it is that we were to go into what she has done over the last year and a half and her actual input to the public service, we could probably understand why she could make those statements, because she seemed to be clueless as to what her job entails. I'm expecting that the labor unions will come out and say they weren't even contacted, engaged in any way, to informed as to what exactly the state of the economy is and why it is that 7% was what they could afford right now. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything from the unions, but based on the track record of the PPP, I don't believe that they were even contacted to give any input as to, what they intended to give to public servants. So I guess we will wait for Parliament to reconvene at some point where they'll come asking for this extra money, and we will have to give in it at that time.
Yeah. And beginning with Mr. Jordan, every time they make an injection in the economy of money of this magnitude and similar, they talk it up as being a stimulus for the economy. And just in his last press conference, Fernandes talked about how much money they have given. They give $2 billion as the first one-off, 25,000 per public servant. They gave another 500 million to the discipline services, 8 billion in COVID cash grants, another 3.6 for support for schools, and so forth and so forth and so forth. One, why isn't any of this seemingly stimulating the economy? Nothing is moving. Business people are complaining of the hardships. And then two, we heard in that very press conference, the president almost on his knees begging the private sector to let this thing pass down to the common man, because they ain't passing it down whatever they're doling out. Why is this? Why this economy is moving no place?
Yeah, well Sharon, when you really hit the nail on the head, you have to know of the bailouts that are given, where the money is going to. If they had given $20 billion to the province and the hard-working workers in the other sectors, whether it be the discipline services, teachers, and so on, you'd have certainly seen it being reflected in the stimulation of the economy. But a large chunk of this money was given to the private sector. And the private sector will generally either save it, right, or change it over into some other asset such as foreign currency or gold or something and stash it away. That is why you're not seeing the kind of effect in the economy that you would have seen had you given the money directly to these consumers, such as the public service and so on, because they will spend most of it. They will invest it in their housing, help to build the houses that they for the very house flats that they've given out and so forth. But that money has not passed through to them. And now the government is recognizing, after I raised this point since last year, after the first budget, that what they are doing is old-fashioned economics that was discredited and to some extent discarded since the 1970s. And that is called trickle-down economics, giving it to the private sector in the hope that they will feed it through to the consumers ultimately, who will then use the monies to stimulate the economy and buy from the very private sector and so on. This discredited since the 1970s, and it is shown here. The bulk of the concessions went to the private sector, and rather than passing through, they appropriated it, and rightly so. We do not have the markets in Guyana, the kind of markets that would allow for that feed through, which is competitive markets. All we have here is a bunch of oligopolies. Even though you 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 people who controlling either the distributive trade, right, the wholesale trade, and so on. They don't have a similar situation, for example, like in the gasoline sector, where if a concession is given to Guyana will then pass it through in their prices and ultimately to the consumer. Mm-hmm. And therefore, people like Sol and all of them have to follow, lest they lose market share and customers. We don't have a similar situation in other sectors. And therefore, when you keep pumping concessions into the private sector, hoping that they will pass it through, concessions like freight, and so on, hoping that they are going to reduce prices. Under normal circumstances in a country like Guyana, that will not happen. In a pandemic where you already said that there are shortages and so forth, there is no incentive for any private sector to pass over any benefit given to them by the government to a consumer. There's already shortages. And if they want to pass it through to a consumer, the consumer could then go and sell it to somebody else. And they will get the benefit. It doesn't make much sense. And as I have said before on this program and other programs, the way to like that, if you had to do it, is to engage in contracts with, for example, the private sector commission. That look, we are going to give you we are going to value your goods at pre-pandemic freight on the understanding that these are the prices that you are going to sell to the consuming public. Failing which, we will revert to the true freight charges in assessing you. Something to that effect. But you can't hope that because they back to the last election and they poured in monies in the last election and so forth, that the two y'all are chummy friends and so forth, and when I give them a concession, they can make it look good by passing through to the consumer. No, they're not going to do it. They're merely reminding you who is boss, that they're the private is boss, and they're the ones who keeping you where you are. That is what they're suggesting to you. And that is why today, when you read the GCI, Mr. Tucker, he's also asking for a leeway. Given the shortages that he claimed for Christmas, he's asking for a leeway. Well, I consider this leeway to be a euphemism for further concessions.
Yeah. And Ali said in the adjusted freight charges, they amounted to $6 billion. And then he went on to state to appeal to the moral responsibility of producers, the private sector, farmers, and so on, to pass this on.
They have no moral, Sherrod, they have no moral responsibility. They have no moral. Private sector is there to maximize private profits. Private profit. First and foremost, a private sector person is about profit. There's no morality about that. That is how.
And that is why we see, and that is why even in pandemic, we see the banks making a lot of profit.
That is correct. You know, I mean, and in fact, in pandemic, it's the worst because that is the time when you have all this. The word skipping me right now, but it's the time when certain kinds of private sector people, banks, and so forth make the most profit. Huge excess profits and so forth. Pandemic leads to shortages, whether contrived, artificial, or otherwise. And who benefits from shortages? The private sector. They're the ones who benefit from so don't let it be seen as if they are sympathetic and all these kinds of story. They are the ones who are going to be benefited from this shortage. You know, they're the ones who are going to import. You see the fishermen, they're no longer able to provide fish from Guyana. So now, right away, you see fish coming from Jamaica and Florida. Who's going to benefit from that? The people who are importing this fish. At exorbitant prices. Who are going to be the The average consumer who can afford chicken or beef or so on, they're the loss makers because they can't afford the imported fish and chicken. They're the loss makers. So that is what you have in a pandemic. It's worse in a pandemic where supply chains are disrupted and where supply itself is disrupted. And it's worse in Guyana where even at the domestic level, even in the domestic level that in some of the cases that don't require large inputs from imported inputs, you still have that have that problem. Domestic prices for sugar, for rice, and all these different things, Bora and so forth. For Bora for $100, $25. Mr. Bora, you know what gives where that is concerned. So you have those kinds of problems, and they are, and I think the part that is even more worrisome at this stage is that when you have a president literally on his knees begging the private sector to have prices passed through, when you have a president telling you, brace for cost of living increases, but you don't have a president that can give you the hope that based on the policies that they're probably putting in place, we are going to ameliorate the effects of these prices and so forth. You're not getting that. You're getting the same run-of-the-mill, remove this, we transfer this, and so on, and none
Correct.
worked.
Excuses. Yeah.
None has worked. Why you chattering over things that didn't work? We need things that will work. And things that will work will have to have an impact in our pockets. And you ask any supporter, whether they be PPP, PNC, WPA, AFC, whoever, ask them how they are doing economically.
Things tight.
And if they don't give you two costs, and they took the time to explain to you how they are doing, tears will come to your eyes.
Yeah. Juretha? Tabitha?
It's crazy, Sharon. Mr. Jordan hit it on the head right there. But I've been talking about the trickle down economics and the fact that it doesn't work. Trickle down economics being a myth and all of that, and that's from my very first budget debate in Parliament. But I've gotten to a stage right now that I honestly believe that the PPP is not trying to implement any process of trickle down economics. I'm at the stage right now that I know for certain that they know that it does not work. And the very fact that they're still going down that line is because they just blatantly don't care about public servants. And that's the realization that we all have to have. They're implementing things. They're looking at policies that follow through trickle down economics. They know trickle down economics doesn't work, but they still go ahead. And dare I say, Sherrod, Mr. Jordan is right here. And they did it the right way. Mr. Jordan did it the right way when he had a very structured tax system, and the only way to have direct transfers from to the public servants, to the people of this country, was to have that structured taxation system and then to give the salary increases like they give. And that is the way in which you feel it in the economy. That is the way, because the public servants will go out and they will spend money. The PPP does not aim at making life easier for public servants. They do not aim at making life easier for anyone. And this is the fact that we need to face right now.
Sharon, I want to disagree with you on one thing, and that is the trickle down economics where the PPP is concerned. I think that their aim is to use it for the purpose that they intend to use it for. I think they use it because they know that it will give the results that they want. And so all of the
the boys
begging that you see from the press and Ashley and whatever, I just think that is false, because the reality of the PPP is the policy that they implement and the effect it has on the population. And they must know how things will affect the population. And so it's not a case that they don't know, it's a case that they know exactly what it will do. Especially, let's take what they did. This all across the board tax increase of 7%. What does that do? That ensures that the gap between those that don't have or have little and those that have much increases. What we were doing under Mr. Jordan's stewardship was basically reducing that gap between those that do and those that do not, or those that have little. And we have to recognize that they understand that. And so what they're doing with this all across the board is ensuring that everybody, a 7% of 100,000 is different from a 7% of 1 million. And if it is that you're going to give everybody 7%, somebody's going to take home 5,000 and somebody's going to take home 500,000. And so they know what that means. And if it is they had done it the way we were doing it, it would have been graded in such a way that those that were at the bottom of the scale, so to speak, those that are taking home minimum wage would have gotten a higher increase than those that are getting $1 million take home right now. But they're not interested in that. They're not interested in reducing the gap. They're not interested in ensuring people actually get a livable wage. And that is the reality of the PPP. What exactly is their foundation? What is the basis on which they make policy? Is it about ensuring that everybody, like you say, the rising tide lifts all boats? Is that their intention, or is it their intention to ensure that the gap is increased and only those that are around them, those that are close to them, those that they're engaging with, continue to get increased and continue to get rich, and the rest of us just suffer? And so that's the one way in which I disagree with Juretha. Everything else I completely agree with. I know trickle-down economics doesn't work for the poor people, but it works for those that are rich, and so they utilize it for exactly that reason.
Yep. And Mr. Jordan, as we wrap up, I want to ask you guys. You know, they're setting up budget budget number 3. What is your expectation? How do we get out of this mess we're in economically?
I expect budget number 3 to be exactly like budget number 1 and 2.
The best way to get out of the mess
Jordan first.
is to get rid of the PPP.
I would rather we stick to that offline because I can't afford to be giving out all these policy advices and I'm not getting a little piece of the pie. I mean, I am good for libelous statements that emanate from the ministry and from other statements emanated from people like Indar. you know, so I don't feel the need to give any free advice anymore on this program. But just to say, for example, that as it relates to this 7% that they have just given out, I would recommend that we find some money out of the 546 million US that we have there. And there's one more shipment before the end of the year, so you may very well get 600 million US dollars. And it would be a shame to have 600 million US dollars there, and you can't take a 25-30 million US and give to the public servants and the other public officers, even as a one-off bonus for the time being, in recognition for the sacrifices that they have gone through over the last 2 years. And the fact that you have destroyed the tax base that does not allow you as the government to give them a better salary increase, and that you have made matters worse by giving across-the-board increases, thereby decimating thereby exacerbating the gap between the haves, those at the top with the 1 million, the 800,000, the $1 million, and the $1.5 million, and the have-nots, those at the minimum scale who are still thanking the coalition government that at least they're earning $70,000 instead of the $39,000 that they were earning in 2015 when we came in. I would say take a 25 million, share it out, even as you aim for next year to have a structured approach to wage negotiation, wage formation, salary scales, and so forth put in place. Also, allowances, which in the case of the public servants have not been touched in about 25 plus years. And those need to be looked at. But it must be an all-embracing situation, not something that suggests because I got an environmental science degree and you got an environmental science degree and we got differential wages that we're going to move towards reducing the anomalies, instead of understanding that a whole job evaluation exercise needs to be undertaken in the public sector so that you understand clearly the jobs, what they require, what are the description, what are the requirements in terms of academic experience and so forth. And only on that basis, with a structured salary scale in place, can you make the necessary adjustments. But to tell me that that you are going to look at, and because both of us graduate at the same time and we're getting different salary, and there's a basis on which, that's like rewarding you for qualification rather than rewarding you for effort and work. I will hope they don't go down that road, but that they'll use a more structured approach to wage.
No worker left behind.
No worker left. No work. I'm telling you, it's going to create huge problems, because there's so many anomalies in the different sectors. It's going to be hard to correct them overnight, as you had seen in the teaching service, and even there, huge anomalies still exist, even as we try to correct some of them. It's best he didn't announce this, because this is going to create a lot of angst among public servants. And that unfortunately is not something you really want at this stage when you're still fighting to get out of the pandemic.
Great. Final thoughts, Juretha, Tabitha.
For Mr. Jordan, I'm not even sure why he announced it, because it has nothing to do with this budget that we're currently in. And so I'm trying to understand those three things that he announced today. Why would he put that at the top of the list of something that he's doing for next year? Like, what was the purpose or the point of it when it's not going to impact on the current budget that we're working with? So I found that sort of strange that was on the top of their agenda of things to come to the public with this afternoon. I'm trying to wrap my mind around the reason for it, and it still has me a bit. I'm still not sure what was the point of even making that statement, because if it is that you're looking at the public service, there is so much that has to be done. It can't be done by the next budget. Budget may come by March next year or something like that. And what needs to be done it needs to come from, it will take a very long time. It's not something that can happen overnight. It's something that has to go in stages. So ensure that all the confusion that will happen if you don't do it right, to ensure that that doesn't happen, it will take some time. So for him to come first out to the bat and say that is a top priority for the next budget, I find that to be quite strange.
Juretha?
Well, one of the things I'm thinking about, one of the things that popped into the top of my head when he said that is how is he going to treat with the PSs that they employed with a diploma, because there he is talking about qualification and who graduated with what, and you have the PS with a diploma working for an exorbitant salary and someone with a master's beneath them within the ministry. So he's going to be telling us how he's going to treat with those things. And there we look at the qualifications of ministers and their salaries match up. That statement was so ridiculous and loose and all of that. And I don't even want to go to the president with those questions about those qualifications and all of that. It was just ridiculous. And the fact that Ashley Singh even, to Mrs. laughing, the fact that Ashley Singh even spoke about it I think he just wanted to add something in there because he was coming with
Gotta make up time.
7%, and he wanted to add something in there. So the last thing he's going to say is a 7%. So he's going to say, "Oh, we're going to be looking at this, and then we're going to be looking at that, and oh yes, and then we're going to be giving you all a meager 7% for y'all to enjoy for the Christmas, however that is possible." And I believe that I looked at it, and you would know, Sherrod, that announcement. I haven't seen any other person. I haven't seen Barjagyo making any statement on what Ashley announced. I haven't seen Irfan Ali making any statement or what.
Ashley like a lamb to the slaughter.
But that's how I see it. That is exactly how I see it. And well, he is the person with the responsibilities for finance. Well, I can't remember the portfolio, Sherry. Can you remember?
It's long.
It's long, but the fact is that his portfolio is not even it doesn't cover everything, because you would remember that even Jagyo took on some of his responsibilities that should have been his and all of that. So it's a bunch of confusion, but he was sent out there to actually go like the lamb to the slaughter and to deliver this. Probably you can say that he wasn't here during the campaign, so he didn't know that they promised the 50%, because Parag was right here on the campaign trail and she seemed to forgot that they promised the 50%. But Tabitha made a very important point earlier when she said that she's very certain that the unions may be coming out to say that they were consulted with and all of that, because one of the things that we could remember clearly is that one of the calls that the union was making was for them to honor their promise of 50% increase for public servants. And at that point in time, Parag didn't remember then that they didn't make that.
Yeah.
It wasn't corrected then when the union was calling for them to honor that pledge. I mean, we have the beauty about social media and media altogether is that all of these things you
dementia
can go back
dementia.
Yeah. So these are the things that we need to be looking at. I think the whole matter that is being discussed right about now, it just stinks of the PPP, and this is the fact that we're looking at right now. The PPP, they went into office. They are there for one thing and one thing alone. They're there to operate and to run this country as a business. And in a business, all they look at is making profits for themselves. And that is what they're doing right now. So they don't care about public servants, and they were not going to start caring about public servants. They're going to bring another budget, and the budget is going to have enormous payouts to the private sector. Again, you mark my word, Sharon. I mean, I'm praying that they can prove me wrong, but I'm very certain that it's going to be a reflection of the first and second budget, because these are the people that we're looking at. They don't care about giving a small man something that he can hold on to and make a better life for himself, because that doesn't benefit them. The PPP operates, so the only thing that they do is whatever can fill their pocket on the side, whatever can benefit them on the side. And that's why they always going with the private sector. And we need to understand as Guyanese that we need to change our mentality and our structure altogether. You know, Sharon, one of the persons that messaged me, I was just reading the messages that when you give incentives to persons, when you want persons to perform a certain way, you give them incentives. Well, with this 7% incentive, they're going to work, and they're going to be working with that incentive balance of work. So if you actually want persons to perform more, you want to show them that you value them more, like the coalition did, you would actually reward them properly. The PPP give a 7% increase, and I give that person no round that's messaging me and say, well, they're going to turn to work tomorrow and they're going to give 7% because that is what the government is giving to them. It's sad.
Great.
This is reality.
And I want to give the final word to Mr. Jordan.
Yes, Sharon, I think you had asked about budget 3. I think this will be probably his most difficult budget from this standpoint.
Difficult labor.
On the revenue side, I think he's going to have a problem, because as you can see, based on the giveaways that he has given over the last 15 months, I think in 2022, those are going to begin to bite significantly, because outside of the oil sector, not much is happening. He was saved in 2021, partly because he had revenues coming over from 2020.
Yes.
As the measures
and they pointed it out, yes. In every sector.
And all these kind of things. So those came in 2021 and saved him somewhat. But even with that saving, the deficit is still projected at $100 billion. Okay? And it doesn't show any sign of narrowing, even though I believe it will narrow, because they haven't been able to implement the public sector investment program at the pace at which they had probably projected. But next year, they're not going to be saved by any forward taxes that weren't paid this year and so forth. They're going to have to be budgeted on the strictly 2022 base. And if the pandemic continues the way it continues, and if you still got supply chain problems and so on, then a number of the projects that they are projected to start or so forth are going to get delayed, so to speak. Right? So I divert expenditure in these anomalous situations that he's talking about, or they will go ahead anyhow with the braggadocio and start these projects only to have them stalled because they cannot get the imports that will be required for these projects. Already, as we said, you got Cherry Dragon stalled because of supply issues. You got the Mandela road stalled because of supply issues. You got the new roads, them going at snail pace because of supply issues and so forth. That is what they told us. They're not be making this up. They told us that they have these supply issues. And once you are having supply issues with projects that have already started, you are going to have cost overruns. You're going to have cost overruns because either you continue doing, sort of kind of little maintenance until the things arrive, or you have to mothball the project and restart again, which is mobilizing and demobilizing and so on to have additional costs. So this is going to be his most difficult budget. I'm not available because I'm not going to work. I'm not going to work with this government. I'm going to stay in my retirement mode, but we will be on this. I'm available on this program to do the postmortem.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic, folks. Thanks for joining us in the ring this evening. Former Minister, the one and only Winston Jordan, Minister of Finance, former Minister of the Public Service, Tabitha Sarabo-Halley, Member of Parliament, and Juretha Fernandes, Shadow Minister for Finance as well. Thanks, folks. Thanks for joining us in the ring. Great discussion. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Guys, there you have it. Quite a discussion, and I'm happy. I'm so happy that so many of you have stuck around, because this really and truly impacts all of us. Even if you're in the diaspora, it impacts all of us, because your family going to be asking for more money. Your family going to definitely be asking for more remittances if this government continues on this trajectory. And you heard You heard former Minister of Finance says this is going to be a tough third budget because of the implications, the monies they've doled out, the slowing down of the economy, right? What they call in that last press conference by Irfan, global supply crisis, and how that is impacting things locally, and then their own mismanagement, their own madness. All of that is going to impact us, folks. But thank you guys for sticking around for this very, very robust discussion here on the 7% and wages and salaries that the government has announced. And this madness from Pariak, she can't remember. They never promised 50%. So all we mad is only them saying, folks, we need some of that 7% to keep our program going. You know, we've asked you guys to come and partner with us. Guys, we're doing so much on the back end here, and we need your help. You know, this program is powered by you guys. We have the Cash App available for your consideration. We got PayPal available. We have the MMG platform, that's the local Cash App. We got the MoneyGram platform. We have the Western Union platform. We ain't got no problem with them, friends. We ain't got no trouble with them. And the Cash App is $, in the ring 592 Marcia Agard. It's $, in the ring 592 at PayPal. It's in the ring 592 at gmail.com at PayPal. And then we got at MMG, our number there is 627-6963, 627-6963. And then again, as we said, we're available on the MoneyGram platform and the Western Union platform as well. You need any guidance, you got an information tip, you got some video, you got a photograph, 627-6963 is the number you can WhatsApp us on there, folks. So we'd love to give you guys any guidance. We've asked you guys to come and partner with us for any amount, starting from $5 per month, 10, 15, $20 per month, and help our program to grow and expand. Thank you guys for spending this time with us. Odwin Lake, you're still here. Will Felix, you're still here as well. Sandra Lewis, you guys are still here. Thank you so much. Jamal Aziz and Auntie Sandra Hanover, Juanita Day, Janita Day, Joylyn Cook, and Jermaine Osborne is still here. All of you fantastic, beautiful people. Hazelyn King, don't we miss the former Minister Winston Jordan? I miss you, I know about y'all. Deborah Halley, and I see Nicola Marks and Julia Lewis. All you fantastic folks. I see Warnella Garnett. Beautiful, beautiful folks. Lots of people ask me to give them a little shout out. So I wanna do just that. Let me see if I can get this properly. I want to do just that. Let me see if I can get it. Yes. Sharmila Carter and Claudette Clark, Gail Allicock, Glennett Chilcott, Margaret Nelson, Philip Bunbury, Alexis Arthur. I see Wendell Henry, Marlon Thomas, Eva Jerrick. I see also Fitzherbert Jerrick as well, Raquel Peters, Elizabeth Norine, Elizabeth Williams, all the Elizabeths, Robert Archer, Winston Granada, Daniel Passad. I also see Margaret Jones. I also see Ariel. How are you doing? The whole family. All of you fantastic folks. Is it Ariel Jones? I can't seem to remember that, but a great evening to all of you guys. Thank you guys for sticking around. Lizzie Simon is still here. Joylyn Cook still here. Shalon Joseph is here as well. Tracy Mullin, Kim Walker. Guys, give us a share before you go. We want to see those emojis as well before you go. Alison Cortez. We love that you're still here with us. And Charlene Jordan is here with us as well. Amabel Clement. All you fantastic folks like Cheryl Thornton and Sharon Thornton. You beautiful people, the Thorntons. Cheryl Thornton and Sharon Thornton. All you fantastic folks. Thanks for joining us here in the ring, guys. It's been our privilege having you guys. We're going to see you back tomorrow night, same time, same place. Remember to share the live stream. Even as you go, as you come back and you watch your broadcast, share it as well. And also hit that emoji button and let's see how you're doing out there. People like Karen McFoy, hit that emoji button and let us see the kinds of feelings, the emotions that are out there on social media. Guys, thanks for joining us this evening. And remember, guys, we need your help to keep going. Come on board and partner with us. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.